Okay, welcome to the other side of medicine. I am Dr. James Krystowski. You can call me Dr. J. We'd love to have you join us today for this special presentation. We have a guest today that I think you'll find quite interesting. It's a pharmacist. Her name is Amy Wilson. We'll talk about her in just a minute. But you're listening to the program that believes that education is much better than medication. And today we'll be really emphasizing that with somebody who has quite a bit of knowledge in medication and has a caution about using medications and using them judiciously. But here on the other side of medicine, we are a gathering place for people that want to use the body's own natural healing capacity. We believe that the body is able to restore health if we treat the body properly and we give it proper nutrition, we have the right mindset, and we're able to work in cooperation with the body. We believe in three major principles here on the other side of medicine. That is common sense, number one, and then evidence-based natural medicine, and then always in cooperation with nature. So without too much more about what we do here, we're going to talk about Amy Wilson right now. She is a board certified geriatric pharmacist. She's a certified fitness professional and a certified nutrition coach as well, using the Faster Way to Fat Loss platform. And she's disrupting the diet industry and helping her clients to take their health back. I love that. I love that Amy's mission is to empower and equip people and her clients to take charge of their own health. That's what we're all about here on the other side of medicine. So we're in concert with her. And so for the last 30 years, she's been helping people with individualized health plans to navigate through their health problems and help them to be able to get back on the road to health. So Amy Wilson, thank you so much for joining us here on the other side of medicine. It's a privilege to have you with us today. And again, welcome to the other side of medicine.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, good. Well, you're trained in traditional pharmacy, and yet you're promoting nutrition. How in the world, give us your story, how you got from the pharmaceutical world to the nutrition world, and give us your background.
Well, I've always been into fitness. I started teaching aerobics back in the day with Jane Fonda. So if we all remember that. And fitness for a long time. Was going through pharmacy school. And yes, I'm trained traditionally as a pharmacist. But through my years of being a fitness professional and then also a pharmacist, people always come and ask you, what can I take for this? How can I lose weight? What's a good supplement? Well, and we all know in medical school too, that's not really something that you are trained. It's something that you have to go beyond your training and start looking into. So as going through my journey of health, going through my journey of the up and down and the constant dieting and the starvation and hormonal issues, realizing that there's a better way, realizing that we have to fuel our bodies because we are one big chemical reaction. And by starving ourselves, we are not allowing the ingredients that we need to function. And then also realizing that dieting's horrible. Overworking out is horrible. And then the flip side of it, being a pharmacist, and now I'm a geriatric pharmacist, which means I am a consultant for long-term care, seeing the end outcome of poor nutrition, poor fitness. It's not pretty. And understanding that, you know what, my mission is to keep people out of my nursing homes. And we can do that. There are reasons to have medication. There's reasons for people to be on medication, but a lot of times it's our go-to. It's our number one thing that we do instead of trying something else, trying something more natural route. So I try to, with my clients, be like, you know what, let's go the natural route. Let's try this first with your doctor's approval. Let's see what we can do. And 9 times out of 10, I can either help them with not even being on medication, reduce the amount of medication, or maybe get them off medication, which is what we should be doing. We're a pill society and we need to quit thinking that there's a pill for everything.
Yeah, that's the title of this podcast, is a pill for every ill, a big question mark. So how much training do pharmacists get in nutrition, by the way?
Not much. And our nutrition training is more, which is TPN, total parental nutrition, which is what you need in the hospital. So you're not really getting nutritional, you'll get the basics. What's a carbohydrate? What's a protein? What are fats? But not exactly nutrition and how it works with the body and how much you need and how much protein you need. So that is not really in the pharmacist curriculum.
Yeah. Well, that's really sad. But as a pharmacist, trained in the world of medications, I know that you're pretty cautious and you're leery and you're always trying to find better ways for people, as you said, to not have to use the medications, although albeit sometimes they're necessary. Most pharmacists don't think like you. What do your colleagues think of the way you approach things?
It's funny because more and more pharmacists are seeing the connection between health, fitness, nutrition, and all of us as pharmacists, we see the pill cocktail that people are on, polypharmacy, pill burden, and see that a lot of people, especially like my nursing homes, when someone comes in, they're on 20 plus medications. That's a full-time job to try to keep track of your medications. So as pharmacists, at least in my circle, we're starting to see more and more becoming, where they want to try to help with nutrition, try to help with other things because people don't want to pay copays. People think that healthcare is too expensive. Well, there's things that you can do to circumvent that.
Yeah, that's really encouraging. That's wonderful to hear that. Amy, there's a lot of, nutrient drug interactions. And my question is, how can patients protect themselves from, the drug nutrient interactions and be able to get educated on, if they're taking a medication that's, necessary, what nutrients they need and how do they really navigate through that to be able to get best advice?
One is really speaking to your pharmacist. And also if there is a drug interaction, let's say grapefruit juice or grapefruit or vitamin K with warfarin, those, we say we used to use stickers, auxiliary labels, and we don't use those anymore. But on your bottle, there should be some warnings that say, do not take with this, or do not take with XYZ, or you got a pamphlet every time that you get a medication. Read through those. It will tell you if you need to avoid certain medications or food or juices. And any questions, that's what the pharmacist is there for. We're there to help you answer it. And don't just like, oh, well, they're too busy. No, that's exactly the reason why we want to be pharmacists, is because we want to help the general public.
That's good to hear. Okay, so antibiotics are given out like candy in this country. They're not only given out by doctors like candy, and they're so overprescribed. And I get, I've seen many medical journals say that 50% of them are really unnecessary. We're getting them in the food supply, as I mentioned. What role do antibiotics play on disrupting the gut?
Well, we have to remember that when you go to the doctor's office, it's not a prize to get a prescription. And it doesn't mean that people think that if they go to the doctor's office, they have to get a prescription. So here's a Z-Pack. Here's something. So you're going to get an antibiotic and you're like, okay, well, this was a worthwhile visit. A prescription doesn't mean it's a worthwhile visit. So the problem with all the antibiotics in our system, one, we're creating resistance, which is very, very scary, because that means the next time that you have something, it may not work because you actually do need it that time. Maybe you had a cough and they're like, oh, here, take something. It's a virus. Antibiotics don't work for virus. I have a lot of people who take antibiotics to try to prevent urinary tract infections. All you are doing is creating resistance when you do that. So what does it do to your body? Well, antibiotics are meant to wipe out bacteria. Take some good ones with it too. And we need the good bacteria. We are doing more and more research on good bacteria in the gut, our gut flora. We now realize that there is a huge, huge, huge connection between the gut and the brain, that helps with anxiety, it helps with preventing depression, it helps with Alzheimer's and dementia, not to mention helping just your GI tract normal so that you have a normal GI tract. So when we take those antibiotics and we get rid of that gut flora, we're causing a lot of issues down the road.
Yeah, that's really sad that, doctors, again, like you said, give antibiotics out for viral infections, and they do it oftentimes, and the patients just take them indiscriminately. So antibiotics disrupt the gut, and we know that, but the immune system, 70% of the immune system resides inside the gut. And so
Mhm.
when we take these antibiotics without really questioning if there's a real need for them, we're over time, because we're losing the beneficial bacteria, we're really weakening our immune system, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Yes. And, as we get older, the one thing that we want to do is keep our immune system strong. So in our younger years, if we're constantly on antibiotics, and in our older years, we're constantly on antibiotics, we just keep decreasing our immune system. And that's what we don't want.
Yeah. Over the years, as I've seen, many patients are given antibiotics for, let's say, urinary tract infections or for sinus infections. They're giving them over and over, repeated. Kids that have ear infections, they're giving them one after another. And I found that, one of the simplest way is to change the food that is on people's plates.
Mhm.
And by getting out the foods that people are having reactions to, that have immediate or delayed response allergies, that many times by just simply doing that, that the person will stop having these repeated infections. Have you experienced that at all?
Well, and I have clients. So when I start coaching my clients, I do virtual. So I have clients all over the world. We do kind of an elimination. So we eliminate gluten and dairy, first of all, for 6 weeks. Sometimes we bring it back in, sometimes we don't. What I find with a lot of my clients is those who have psoriasis, have allergies, have just any kind of rash, it all goes away, which is pretty impressive. So yeah, so there's a correlation between gluten, there's a correlation between some fruits with some people and allergies. So it's a good idea if there's constantly having these infections to get tested. The other thing too is to look at, are you eating ultra processed foods? Because ultra processed foods are not helping your immune system one bit. If you're not giving your body the nutritional value it needs, it's not going to be a good, strong immune system.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The average American is consuming so many of these ultra processed foods. They're eating very little of the fruits and vegetables and the fermented foods. And they're getting very little water intake, very little exercise. They're eating lots of, animal protein, which, again, too much of these foods can really disrupt the gut microbiome. And so you're really on target of, getting rid of the foods that people are reacting to and getting them off of these processed foods is the key. Now, shifting from the antibiotics, which we know is a problem, and moving into other medications like anti-inflammatory drugs, which I think probably are the second most, and tell me if I'm wrong, most overprescribed drugs. How do they disrupt the gut?
Well, you're talking about ibuprofen and NSAIDs and everything else. And yeah, there's now research, and I'll be the first to say I take a lot of ibuprofen sometimes, and we all do. It's like, and it can disrupt the gut flora. And that's another reason that you might be having increased inflammation, increased pain, because it's actually doing kind of a negative feedback loop where it's not doing what you want to do, it's actually making it worse.
So these what in your experience or in the medical research, what are the top 3 overprescribed medications today?
Oof. Well, off-label GLP-1s are being over.
Okay,
So
that's what you want to talk about.
Yeah, so I would say GLP-1s are being definitely on the hot topic right now. Overprescribed antibiotics. Antibiotics are being way overprescribed. The third one, I don't know what would be considered overprescribed because I'm not in retail, so I don't get to see the prescriptions coming through anymore. I'm mainly in the nursing homes doing the charts, so I don't really know what the third one would be per se.
Well, that's really interesting. You said right away, right at the top of your head, that GLP-1 are overprescribed. You thought that was number one. we have what, 65 to 70% of Americans are overweight, and we're now looking at this as the miracle drug. Talk about the dangers of that medications and how it's overused.
Well, just watching TV last night, there's all these so-called pop-up doctor's offices, pharmacies that are compounding this medication, which you don't know how it's being compounded and if it's safe. That's one problem. The issues with GLP-1s is they do have a purpose, especially if someone's type 2 diabetes. They've really tried everything. It's not working. Their A1C, which is a blood glucose marker, is extremely high. We need to do something. The problem is that now we're seeing those who have 5, 10, 15 pounds to lose are going right to the GLP-1s. I realize everybody thinks they've tried everything. We've tried every single quick fix diet out there. And I will tell you, every single quick fix diet does not work. When you start looking at it as a health program and not a diet program, and start looking at what you need to consume and how you need to lift weights and how you need to work out, and it doesn't have to be for hours, then a switch flips and all of a sudden things do start working. The problem with GLP-1s, there are so many side effects. There are so many side effects. And when you don't eat, where is your nutrition coming from? If you're not getting the protein you need, your body's going to take protein. It's going to take it from your muscles. It's going to get the glucose there. Well, if you're not getting your vitamins and minerals, where's it going to take it? Well, your bones, osteoporosis, osteopenia. As we get older, there's something called frailty. If you think about you think of someone who's very old and they look weak and they might be rounded shoulders and they shuffle and they just look like they're going to blow over just by, if you just go, that's frailty. My worries with these GLP-1s is because you're not eating, you're not fueling your body, you're not doing the things that you need to do. It's slowing down your digestive system, that you're going to be looking at frailty at a much younger age.
Yeah, well, most people don't realize, but the body produces its own GLP-1 in the small intestines. And so talk a little bit about that and how people are not utilizing the capacity the body has on its own, because medicine really just tries to exemplify and modify what is already existing inside the body and tries to mimic.
So GLP-1 is naturally released when we eat protein. It's naturally released when we eat whole foods. It's a great discovery. It's a hormone. They discovered a hormone and they realized how it works, and then they were able to synthesize it. But they synthesize it in like 10 to 100 times more. And with that, then it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and now we know there's issues with. That's why it may help with some people who are alcoholic, but it also has the problem where it slows down your digestion, can cause gastroparesis, may have thyroid issues. So we can, by eating whole foods, by eating protein, by eating the real stuff, can increase the amount of GLP-1 that is synthesized or not synthesized, that is released in our bodies, that will naturally stop the voices of hunger in our heads. That will naturally make us not so hungry. The reason we're hungry all the time is because we're not feeding ourselves what we need. We're fueling our body with crap, with lots of sugar, with lots of simple carbohydrates. So no wonder you're moody. No wonder you think about food all the time. No wonder you're tired, because you're not giving your body what it needs to function.
Yeah, that's really sad that most Americans are living like that, and they don't realize the potential that the body has to be able to provide everything that they need, including the energy, the ability to think, clearly and have good cognition and be able to, protect themselves and have a strong immune system and prevent themselves from things like COVID and everything else. But, I want to shift to talking about the placebo effect, because people are using medications today. And many times it's just the doctor telling the patient, take this medication, it's going to work. And the placebo effect is really the most powerful thing that's actually happening, more so actually than the drug itself. So talk a little bit about that and what percent of the effect does placebo effect have?
Well, I think placebo is huge, because if I have a client who comes to me and says, I tried everything, but I know this is going to work, guess what? It's going to work. If I have a client who comes to me and says, I tried everything and this is just not, they have one foot out the door already, I can guarantee by week 2, they'll give up. Guarantee. It's the same thing when you go to the doctor and they say, hey, this pill will do it. You're like, yes, I know it will do it. I know it will do it. Positivity is huge. Positivity puts endorphins in your body. It makes you feel good. It makes you smile. You have a pep in your step. When you are thinking it's the end of the world, or stressors, or making things that are worse, then your body's immune system goes down. So when you feel good and you think that this is going to work, placebo effect. If we could give everybody just a little pill, that call it a happy pill, this is going to make everything wonderful, and you take it every single morning, it would be a different world out there.
Yeah, that's really a good thing, and we should take advantage of it, like you're saying right now. But a lot of people don't realize when they go to the doctor and are getting these medications. I think, according to the medical profession, the studies that I've seen, up to 50% of the medicine's benefit comes from placebo effect.
Yeah, I
Which
would
again,
believe that.
it's not a bad thing. It's actually a
No.
good thing.
Yeah.
So we should use our mindset to help
Mhm.
us to be able to have our bodies heal ourselves. And everything we need is inside of our bodies. And we just need to tap into it, utilize it, and be able to, get the advantages of how the body's able to heal itself. I want to shift right now to, talking about the fact that people, for thousands and thousands of years, people, the healthiest people around the world, specifically people in the populations which I'm very familiar with, called the blue zones, which I'm sure you're
Mhm.
familiar with. These
Mhm.
are people that live in the Mediterranean region and the Asian communities and in South America that live in isolation. These people have extraordinary health, have, when they live their traditional diet, according to their diets and lifestyle, they have less than 1% of the population that has chronic disease. They
Mhm.
live to be 100 and beyond in good health. And yet, these people are eating carbohydrates of the
Yeah.
yin yang, and they're eating whole foods, and they're getting exercise, and they have positive mindset, and they're using herbs. And yet today, we have people who, quote, are experts in telling us that carbohydrates are bad, and the paleo people and the keto people. And now
Mhm.
we have even people who are going to even a farther extreme in saying that we should stay away from all carbohydrates, all things except meat, and just be on a carnivore diet. How how do you perceive that?
I absolutely love the Blue Zone. So if anybody's not seen the Netflix documentary, I would definitely look at it. And there is one in the United States. It's in California. Um,
Well, Linda.
Lola Linda, yes. And what they found with the Blue Zones was, yes, they eat carbohydrates. They're eating rice. They're eating potatoes. They're eating beans and legumes, and that did not increase diabetes. That didn't increase obesity. They are active, very active. Some of them sit on the floor. They are agile. And another thing is community. The community is huge. And all of those things put together increase in longevity. But here is the kicker, though. This is the key, because everybody says, well, I want to live to be 100. Do you really? If you're 75 and you're in a nursing home for the next 25 years, is that living?
Yeah.
I think if we're living to 100, we want to be vibrant. We want to be outside. We want to be doing things. We want to be with the community. We don't want to be just in a rocking chair watching TV or watching the days go by. So the Blue Zones puts all that together. And yeah, some places were more rice, some places were more potatoes, some places were more beans. But what it showed was that this thinking that you just have to have no fat or no protein is so wrong, that it is balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Back in around 2004, I wrote a book called Carbs from Heaven and Carbs from Hell in response to the Atkins craze back then.
Mhm.
And in that book, I actually cited the areas of the blue zones, and I had maps. I have maps in my book of
Mhm.
those three regions, and that was actually 6 years before that National Geographic came out with their
Mhm.
study on the blue zones and hired all these scientists from around the world. And so I was really kind of ahead of the curve. But I'm not bringing that up for that reason. I'm just saying that I basically saw the handwriting on the wall when Atkins came out and said carbohydrates were bad, that people were going against what people have been doing for thousands of years. Do you remember the cultural people from South America called the Pima Indians. You remember those people?
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Well, the Pima Indians are really interesting. They're from South America. And scientists actually found that they were isolated, living up in the mountains of in South America. I can't remember which country it was, but they were living up isolated in the mountains, and they had a drought. They came out of the mountains, and the United States government and took them in. And these people, when they came out of the mountains, were extraordinarily healthy. Less than 1% of the population had any kind of chronic disease. And they lived on whole foods, and they ate whole grains, and they ate corn, and they ate fruits and vegetables and potatoes. Well, anyways, make a long story short, the government of the United States took them in, moved them into Arizona, put them on government subsidized food supply, and they became overweight, and they became the heaviest overweight population in the world. And they started having type 2 diabetes, which was non-existent before. And again, over 60% of the population became overweight on the standard American diet.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a real dramatic proof that it's our cultural diet that we have here in America, this overprocessed food that is causing us to have chronic disease. Mm-hmm. So we need to get back to the basics, which you're talking about. And I love, as a pharmacist, that you're really emphasizing whole foods and trying to teach people that use the body's capacity to heal itself first. So I love that. Thank you for all your work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Like I said, my mission is to keep people out of my nursing homes. It's not living. And especially since I'm now in midlife and chapter 2, I'm in training. I call it training for part 2. And it's training to stay out of nursing home. Every day it's doing exercises to keep my body strong, to keep my mind strong, and instilling that in all my clients for the same reason. It's like a lot of my clients come to me because they just want to lose weight. And it's flipping that switch to understand that it's not just about the pant size. Yes, is that going to be the byproduct? Absolutely, it's going to be the byproduct. But when you start looking at health, when you start looking at, hey, I got to keep muscle because muscle is my fountain of youth. When you start correlating how food makes you feel and how other certain foods makes you feel, and you don't realize how bad you felt until you start feeling good, it's crazy when the brain fog goes, when the joint pain goes, when the inflammation goes. And it was simple, kind of, because sometimes it is hard to change, but it's a simple adjustment of what you're eating.
Yeah, I absolutely love that you ascribe to that kind of a mindset. I had a patient that was on the Atkins diet. She was over 100 pounds overweight, and she feared potatoes. That was the worst thing that the people on the low carbohydrate side, they say potatoes is the worst thing on the worst food on the planet. Well, I told her, I said, okay, if I'm going to take care of you, I want you to eat a baked potato with the skin every single day. And when I told her that, she about fell through the floor. And I said, that's the only way I'll take you on as a patient. Well, she agreed. And to make a long story short, I put her on a whole food, primarily plant-based diet, although she ate small, scanty amounts of animal protein. She ate balanced, like you said, protein, carbohydrates, and fats, good fats. And she lost over 100 pounds. And I was on TV, on television with her, and the host of the program dubbed her the Potato Queen and dubbed me Dr. Good Carbs.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah. So, okay. So what are, in your estimation, some of the conditions that respond most favorably to nutrition before going to medication? What are some of the conditions you found in your experience?
Metabolic disorders. So metabolic syndrome and metabolic disorder are the big ones. So we're talking hypertension, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, prediabetes, even someone who's been just diagnosed with diabetes. Those 3 really respond very, very well to good nutrition. They really do. The cornerstone of all 3 of those is inflammation. And when you're eating whole foods, when you are not working out cray-cray, because back in the 80s, and we grew up with the myth that you have to eat less and work out more. And to us, that meant 3 or 4 classes a day, going to the gym for hours, being on the treadmill, being on the Stairmaster, doing all this cardio. It's such a myth. It's so wrong. And when you do it correctly, you can decrease your blood pressure. You can decrease your A1C, your prediabetes, your diabetes, and your cholesterol.
Wonderful. Speaking of thinking that we have to work out all this time and, just constantly, just over, I guess, or even abuse our body, it reminds me of something that happened to me personally. I'd like to share that I think people could actually learn from. Amy, I'm 75 and I play full court basketball with college students, 5-on-5 on full court basketball. I participate in triathlons. I work out with weights 3 times a week. But let me tell you what happened to me. Okay. I was doing high intensity interval training and I was on the treadmill for about 3 or 4 months. And I was doing like 9 sets of 30 seconds of high intensity. And I'd get off the treadmill. I'd be like,
yeah.
And I rest for 90 seconds. Well, Amy, one day I was doing that and I was in about my 8th set and I came off the treadmill and all of a sudden I like, whoa. And I was dizzy and I kind of caught myself and I thought, what was that all about? And I kind of half suspected it might've been a stroke. Guess what? It was a mini stroke. There is limitations at 75. There is limitations. So anybody out there who thinks that they're totally invincible, I learned the lesson myself that you have to understand that we don't have to, go out of we don't have to be crazy about what we're doing with exercise.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's, I think, your point as well.
Yeah. We did that in our 20s.
Exactly.
And sometimes we feel like we have to go the extra because of competition with ourselves or competition with somebody else. I love having a plan. So maybe HIIT twice a week, weights 3 to 4 times a week, active recovery, which is stretching or going or like yoga, doing something like that. We have to understand that 30 minutes a day that you're working out does not mean that's the only 30 minutes a day that you're moving. Your body is meant to move. It's not meant to sit in a chair. We know that's the new smoking. You need to move your body. So, hey, do laundry, go clean your house. It's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Amy, what about herbs? Are you an advocate of herbal preparations, herbal medications, for helping people to overcome illness?
On some, but you have to remember is that herbs are still medication. And herbs can still have side effects and herbs can interact with other medications. So, how come people who come to me and they're on 20 some different herbs? Well, not every supplement you need to take. Be smart with what you're taking. There's a reason why you need to take it. And if it's to compensate for something that you're not doing with your nutrition wise, then do you really need that supplement? Maybe you need to get together with your nutrition. You have to think about something like digoxin, lanoxin. That comes from a plant. I grow it every year. It's a beautiful purple flower. Just because it's an herb doesn't automatically, or a supplement doesn't automatically mean it's safe. So just be careful and don't be loading up on 20 and 30 different supplements and thinking that's going to be the end all be all and you're not doing anything about your nutrition. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that, I believe exactly what you're saying. I ascribe to that too. One of the things that I really try to teach my patients is that making, food is your best medicine. And if you use things that people have been doing for time immemorial, like for example, including, every single week, making sure you're getting 2-3 times a week, getting fresh garlic and getting ginger and, getting fresh basil and oregano. I love to use fresh herbs and cilantro and, getting these things into your diet, taking, turmeric and all these things that people have been using for time immemorial, they're safe. And you can
absolutely. If you're using them for cooking, absolutely, because those are the true form. It's not something that's been processed in a plant.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, well, what about fermented foods? Because that's something I think that a lot of people are not aware of, but fermented foods can really be beneficial. Talk about what your experience has been with fermented foods.
So fermented foods are something like kefir. My favorite is dill pickles. And so, and they're shown to help with our gut flora, and they're shown to help with the prebiotics and probiotics. And so it's something simple that you can incorporate into your diet every day that you're doing good for. Remember I said to eat whole foods. Well, guess what? Those foods, whether you like, Some people like sauerkraut, some people don't. But you incorporate some of those foods a couple times a week, it's going to help with your digestive system.
Absolutely. I really love the work that they're doing at Stanford University with the microbiome. They're doing some extraordinary work there. And some of the scientists there have really found that, using the fermented foods, and they're recommending like 4 to 5 small portions actually of different fermented foods every single day in your diet. You don't have to eat a lot. If you take a couple tablespoons of, for example, sauerkraut, if you get, like you said, dill pickles, or getting some, pickled beets, or getting some miso, or getting some other, you said kefir or yogurt, just small portions of those, but getting a variety of those things, because different bacteria really, they really love these different types of fermented foods. They actually said that their research shows that they're much more powerful and beneficial than taking a probiotic supplement. What's your experience been with that?
I mean, it's very possible. And the thing is that people have to remember is that because we're great in the United States, thinking one's great and 10 is better, is that you do not need a lot of this. So it's not having a 3 or 4 servings. Those drinks that are probiotics, look at the serving size. It's about a shot glass size. It's not the whole entire bottle. So yeah, adding different kinds of fermented foods, perfect.
Yeah, that's. I think people need to learn about how these fermented foods can really help to, help the beneficial bacteria in your gut grow. We've messed up our guts so bad, and I think, again, from my perspective, and I'd like to get your perspective on this. I see these people migrating to, keto diet or the paleo diet, and they say, "Oh my God, I got some great benefits from it," or getting on the carnivore diet and they get some great benefits. Those are short term. But here's my thought, and I want to get your perspective on it. Okay, the people that are getting benefits from these things I believe they're getting benefit because they don't have inside of their gut the beneficial bacteria, because they've destroyed it by taking medications and the stress in their life and the overprocessed foods. So they don't have these beneficial bacteria. And when they eat foods that are complex carbohydrates, or they eat foods that have fruits and vegetables, or, other foods that maybe people say they're bad, like, the FODMAP foods or whatever, they don't have the beneficial bacteria in their gut to break down these foods. What did you think? What's your experience? That's my theory.
Well, it's that could be part of it. It's definitely when you go on these extreme, whether it be carnivore diet or keto or whatever they are, you're usually missing out on something. And you will get quick results very quickly, just because it's your body, you're changing what your body's used to, but you're also at the same point, there's a point where you stop, and yeah, you just screwed up your gut microbiome. So you're not giving your body what it needs. And then there's the other thing. Our bodies like carbs. They do. There's a reason why our bodies like carbs, because it helps glucose helps our brain. Glucose helps build muscles. Our bodies need fat to help with our hormones. When you only give it one thing, our body's going to crave something. And then it's like backfires on you, because everybody knows that whoever's on Atkins, all they had was one piece of bread and it just went to town and everything. They went every simple carbohydrate. Once again, the simple carbohydrates, we don't want to do that. But if you do the complex carbs and you add that with the other nutrition, and not just do keto and not just do carnivore and not do the next thing that's going to come out, and you are working in synergy with your body instead of trying to outsmart it, because let me tell you, your body's going to outsmart you every single time, then that is what you are essentially going for. Once again, you're going for health. That's what you need to focus on.
Yeah. That's really sad that, these people are getting swayed by these quote experts who are getting them to follow these diets. And there's so much research to show that, long term, if you eliminate or you reduce the amount of fruits and vegetables that you're eating, or the whole grains, you're missing out on a lot of the key elements the body wants and needs to provide not only short-term health, but long-term health. And I think that's what we're looking at. We want to have short-term as well as long-term. And these people that are on these diets, they may be getting short-term benefit, but as you said, long-term, there's a lot of detriments.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they're in the short term. That is what they're looking at. They're not looking at what happens in 20 years or 25 years. They're not looking at what happens in a year. They're looking at this wedding that's coming up or this reunion that's coming up. And okay, I understand that, but let's start focusing on the more important things. And I will tell you, once you start focusing on the more important things, guess what? You don't go up and down. You don't do this yo-yo, which is exhausting, first of all, mentally exhausting. And so now you're looking at health and you don't have to worry about having to starve yourself for the next event, because guess what? You're already where you want to be without all the craziness.
Sure. Yeah. How many people we both seen that went on these extreme diets and then eventually, because they really love carbohydrates and our bodies crave carbohydrates, they end up going back to them and then they're binging on the wrong type of carbohydrates. I think you might have even mentioned that already.
Yeah.
We really need to get people to eat the whole food carbohydrates and enjoy them and be able to have balance. Like you said, balance between carbs and proteins and fats. And let's talk about the fats right now that are really important. What are some of the most important fats that people need to be really eating on a regular basis?
Well, let's talk about real food. It's not your bakery goods. So we want fats from olive oil. We want fats from avocados. We want the good fat, not the fat that you're getting from Crisco or the vegetable oil. That is inflammatory. We really don't want to do that. So good fats, and that helps with our hormones. That helps with, we need hormones. We talk about it all the time, not just women. Women, we talk about hormones all the time. Men, you have hormones too. You need those hormones. And the other thing that it does too, and we didn't really talk about much, is that balancing your blood sugar. When you balance your blood sugar with the protein, with the fat, with the carbohydrates, and you're not doing these crashes or these spikes, that's when you start feeling better. That's when those voices go away that keep telling you that you're hungry and that you need to eat this, is because you're now fueling your body. You're now balancing out your blood sugar. It's not doing these huge spikes. It's not doing these huge dips. And you need all three: the fats, the carbs, the protein.
Okay. So what do you think are the most important habits that people need to have to be able to not only help their body to recover from chronic disease, but be able to live, as I talk about, an independently healthy life? What are some of the habits you think?
No Eeyores. And what I mean by Eeyore is everybody knows Winnie the Pooh and their friend Eeyore, and everything is horrible and everything is down. If you have that attitude, it's not going to work out very well. So thinking positivity is totally mindset, and having that maybe positive mantra every morning or a positive thought every morning. Breathing helps with that too. If you have anxiety, using breathing exercises instead of medication. So other habits: going outside, walking, staying active, cooking, learning how to cook. You don't have to be a chef, but learning how to use real food and eat real food. One, it's cheaper. It's going to save you money. And everybody I know right now is into, I got to save money on the grocery bill. You're not full when you eat something that is processed. You're still like, what's next? I want dessert. I want this. When you start eating real food, you actually get satisfied. So if you can move your body, if you can start in baby steps, I'm not talking to cook all the time. Just start maybe cooking one meal every other day. Make it big so that you have leftovers. Positivity and move your body. That's huge.
Yeah, you said about people are trying to minimize the amount of money they spend on food. My grandmother was not educated, Amy, but here's what she said, and it really has stuck with me for a long time. She said, you can skimp on the clothes that you wear. You can skimp on the home that you live in or the vacations that you take or the car that you drive in. But she says, never skimp on the food that you put into your mouth. I thought that was a wise woman.
Very wise, very, very wise. Because you think about all the excessive stuff that we purchase that maybe we don't need, and take those excessiveness and put it towards the grocery bill. You'll be better off.
Invest in your body, right?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So Amy, okay, so what, as a pharmacist, as a nutritionist, what would you like to be remembered for?
Remembered for helping people and making them feel better. That is when someone says, I feel so much better, or I actually like what I see in the mirror, and they're happy. That is, I would like to be remembered for that.
That's a beautiful thing, you know, and I think that, you know, your particular persuasion and your perspective on things is so balanced. And I absolutely love how you approach things. And you have such a really a beautiful perspective on balance in the life with mindset and what you eat and exercise and ascribing to the blue zones. I really believe that, you know, we're on the same page. And I think that it's common sense, isn't it? And when
Yeah.
we look at the people around the world and how they've been living healthy for thousands of years, and we think we're going to improve on that, I think it's kind of foolish to think that, don't you?
Yeah, it's just going back to the basics. That's what it really is. We try to outsmart, and you just have to go back to the basics. Like I said, our body is smart. It knows what it wants, and it's the basics.
Well, Amy, I really want to thank you for being our guest here on the other side of medicine. I'm sure that people, you know, can really uh, benefit from the knowledge that you have. How can people get in touch with you if they like to be able to reach out to you?
Two different ways. If you're on Instagram, you can reach me. I'm at the Nutrition Coach Pharmacist, so the Nutrition Coach Pharmacist, or I have a website. It's amykwilson.com, AMYKWILSON.com, and you can reach me out. You know, I can email me there or send me a message on Instagram.
Well, that's wonderful. You know, I really think that people that have, you know, important, you know, questions they have about medications, can they reach out to you and ask about if medication or anything?
Sure, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I have a community that I have that teaches people about how to take care and take a proactive role in their health, and it's called the Gut 911 RX, the Gut 911 prescription. And so I would like to have you come on as a guest sometime on that as well.
Oh,
And
sure.
I try to educate people there. And it's a community of like-minded people who are really trying to support each other and learn about how to unleash the power that the body has to heal itself. And it's all, there's a free library of my 35 years of experience. So I would, you know, love to be able to have you come on and share your experiences there and teach people. So I'll get in touch with you. Maybe we can do that in the future.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you take care. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Amy, I'm going to edit this out, so don't worry about me talking right now. But,
Okay.
I really appreciate you taking the time and the patience that you've had with me with my little glitches in the beginning, trying to get things up. I apologize for that. You know, you look a lot like Deanna Minnick. Do you know who Deanna Minnick is?
No, I don't, but I get the you look like this person.
Yeah, well, look at Deanna Minnick. She
Okay.
is a phenomenal lady. I'm gonna end this recording right now. She's a phenomenal